In the vast, wind-swept plains of Central Asia, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the sky seems to swallow the earth, lived a people who called themselves the children of the wind. They were nomads, herders of horses and sheep, wanderers who followed the rhythms of nature rather than the borders of men. Their lives were simple, but their wisdom was deep, carved by the harshness of the land and the freedom of the open steppe. Among them was a boy named Timur, the son of a chieftain, born beneath the shimmering light of a full moon. From the day he could walk, he knew the feel of the earth beneath his bare feet and the whisper of the grass against his skin. His earliest memories were of riding across the plains with his father, watching the herds move like waves across the green sea of grass, and listening to the old songs that told of gods, spirits, and warriors who lived and died by the code of the steppe. One night, as the campfires flickered under the star-filled sky, Timur's father spoke to him of the 3 lessons every nomad must learn if he is to live with wisdom. "The land teaches," his father said, his weathered face glowing in the firelight. "But few have ears to listen. The first lesson is the wisdom of movement, the second is the wisdom of silence, and the third is the wisdom of giving." Timur did not understand then. He was young, full of restless energy and dreams of conquest. But those words would follow him through the years, returning in moments of struggle, loss, and revelation, each time revealing a deeper truth. The wisdom of movement came to him first. When Timur was 15, a great drought swept across the plains. The rivers dried, the grass turned to dust, and the herds began to die. Some clans built wells and waited for rain, but Timur's father gathered his people and said, "The steppe does not wait for those who sit still. We must go where the land still breathes." And so they moved. For weeks they journeyed across barren ground, driven by hunger and heat. The children cried, the elders weakened, and still they pressed on. Many cursed the decision, but Timur's father remained calm, guiding them by the stars. At last, after 40 days, they reached a valley where snowmelt fed a hidden stream and green shoots sprouted along its banks. The herds found pasture, and the people found life again. That night, as Timur sat by the stream, his father came to him. "Do you see, my son? To live is to move. The river never stays in one place, and neither can we. Change is the law of the steppe. When the wind shifts, those who cling to the past are buried in the sand. The wise man moves with the wind, not against it." Timur remembered those words years later when he became chieftain after his father's death. The world was changing. New tribes rose from the east, and others settled into fortified towns. Some of his people wanted to build permanent homes, to rest after generations of wandering. But Timur refused. He led them onward, keeping alive the old rhythm of migration, believing that freedom was found not in walls but in the open sky. The second lesson, the wisdom of silence, came to him through loss. When Timur was 25, he married a woman named Aisha, a healer and singer of great beauty. Together they had a son, Arslan, whose laughter filled the camp. But one winter, a great blizzard swept across the steppe. For days it raged, blinding and merciless. When it finally passed, they found Aisha lying cold beside her tent, her hands frozen around her son, whom she had sheltered from the storm. Arslan lived, but Aisha did not. Timur was broken. For days he spoke to no one, wandering alone across the snow-covered plains. He cursed the spirits and questioned the meaning of his father's lessons. What wisdom could there be in such cruelty? What lesson in pain? On the seventh day, he found himself before an ancient tree, its branches black against the white sky. Beneath it stood an old woman wrapped in furs. She was one of the shamans of the wandering tribes, known for traveling alone between camps, speaking to spirits and stars alike. She looked at him with eyes as deep as the earth. "You have lost much," she said. "I have lost everything," Timur replied bitterly. "What use is wisdom when the gods steal what you love?" The woman nodded slowly. "The wind howls, the snow falls, the horse runs. Do you curse them for doing what they must do?" "They are not cruel," Timur said. "They have no heart." "Exactly," said the shaman. "And yet you would give your heart to them. You mistake silence for cruelty. The sky does not speak, but it shelters you. The earth does not comfort, but it feeds you. Grief is a teacher, Timur. If you listen long enough to your pain, it will show you where your heart still lives." Timur bowed his head and wept. For the first time, he did not fight his sorrow. He sat beneath the tree and listened. To the wind, to the snow, to the sound of his own breath. And in that silence, he felt something shift within him. He understood that silence was not emptiness, but space, the space where the soul heals and the heart learns to hear again. When he returned to his people, he carried a new calmness. He no longer raised his voice in anger or hurry. When disputes arose, he listened first. When others panicked, he waited. His presence became a quiet strength that others leaned on. The people began to call him Timur the Still Wind. The third lesson, the wisdom of giving, came to him in his old age. The world around him was changing once more. Traders from distant lands brought strange goods and stranger ideas. Some of his own tribe began to envy the settled folk, who lived behind walls and grew rich from trade. One day, his grown son Arslan came to him and said, "Father, why must we keep wandering? We have horses, wealth, and strength. Let us build a city of our own." Timur looked at his son with both pride and sadness. "And what will you build it on?" "On the land," Arslan said. "Like all men." Timur smiled faintly. "The land belongs to itself. We are only its guests." But Arslan would not listen. He gathered many followers and led them to the river valley, where they began to build. They planted crops, raised walls, and sang songs of a new beginning. Timur watched from afar, his heart torn between love for his son and sorrow for what he foresaw. Years passed, and the city grew strong. Yet one year, heavy rains came, flooding the valley. The river swelled and broke through the walls, washing away the fields and homes. Arslan's people fled back to the open steppe, humbled and hungry. When they reached Timur's camp, they found him sitting by the fire, his hair white, his eyes gentle. "I tried to build something lasting," Arslan said, falling to his knees. "But the land took it away." Timur placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Nothing lasts forever, my son. The steppe gives and takes in equal measure. The only thing we can keep is what we give." Arslan frowned. "What do you mean?" "Wisdom, kindness, courage. These are the gifts the wind cannot steal. When you share your food, your strength, your stories, they live on in others. The herds will die, the tents will fall, but a generous spirit outlives the body. That is the third lesson. To give without fear of loss." That night, Timur gathered his people and told them stories of the drought that taught him to move, of the silence that taught him to listen, and of the flood that taught him to give. The stars above seemed to shimmer brighter as he spoke, and the wind carried his words far across the plain. When Timur died, they buried him beneath the great sky, without stone or monument. His grave was marked only by a single horse's skull, facing east toward the rising sun. But his people remembered. They passed down his 3 lessons through generations, not in books, but in the way they lived. Centuries later, when travelers from distant lands rode across those same plains, they met the descendants of Timur's tribe. They saw how the nomads moved with the seasons, how they sat in silence before the fire, and how they shared their food with strangers without hesitation. When asked why they lived this way, an elder smiled and said, "Because the land has no master, only teachers." And we have listened. In the stillness of the steppe, where the grass bends and the sky stretches forever, the wisdom of the ancients remains. The wisdom of movement, to flow with life's changes. The wisdom of silence, to find peace within. And the wisdom of giving, to live beyond oneself. These are the lessons of the wild, whispered by the wind, waiting for those who will listen. Even now, when the modern world rushes forward, blind to its own noise, the old ways speak softly beneath the roar. The stars still guide those who look up. The earth still welcomes those who tread lightly. And the wind still carries the song of a people who learned long ago that true wisdom is not found in conquest or comfort, but in harmony with the untamed heart of the world.